I'm Brianna Wagner. I'm the communications manager at Lawyer One, and I'm so delighted to be with Alex Barlow today. He is a litigation attorney with Schrader and Associates, and he's based in Houston, Texas. Welcome. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Bri.
So, if you don't mind, do you mind sharing just your journey with what you have practiced and how you got involved with your firm?
Sure. I've been a litigator in complex litigation for too long, over 21 years now. And I got involved in complex litigation because I grew up in a refinery town where things, most of my family worked at the refineries and worked in the oil industry and other dangerous jobs. And a lot of them got hurt or got very, very sick from occupational diseases. And so when I managed to avoid having to go to work in the plant because I didn't like working that hard, I decided to go to college instead and law school. I decided that I wanted to do something that would honor my family members that had suffered and died from occupational disease, and thought that the best thing I could do is go out and represent those folks. And it's not something that just any lawyer is really qualified to do. It takes some experience and some understanding of science to go out and do the studying and get the understanding of the science to prosecute these complex type cases. And so it started with occupational diseases, cancers, and asbestosis, interstitial lung disease from toxic exposures. And it grew from there over time into representing people who had been injured by dangerous drugs or faulty medical devices. And so for the last, 10, 11 years, I've been involved in that sort of litigation, representing individuals who've been hurt by drugs that weren't properly tested, or there weren't proper warnings on, or medical devices that had design defects or were not properly tested and didn't have the proper warnings. And along with individuals, I've also represented a number of states and state attorneys general in prosecuting the cases against kind of the fraudulent marketing of drugs that had these problems. I represented the citizens of the states and the attorneys general in getting the taxpayers compensation for that.
Let's talk about something that has been causing a lot of side effects for Americans, and that is that class of drugs, tenofovir. If you don't mind just explaining what it is and how it affects other people.
Sure. Tenofovir is the active ingredient in a class of drugs that was originally developed and marketed by Gilead in the, I think they brought it to market in 2001. They began developing it, I think, as early as 1996. But as they developed it, they've rolled it out in a series of drugs since then. And those drugs are Viriad, which was approved by the FDA in 2001, Truvada, which was approved by the FDA in 2004, Atripla, which was approved by the FDA in 2006, Complera, which was approved in 2011, and Stribold, which was approved in 2012. And so all of these drugs are what they call antiretrovirals, and they're used to treat or in some instances prevent, at least partially prevent, decrease the risk of contracting HIV. And so tenofovir is a drug component that is very good at treating HIV, and it's very effective at reducing one's risk of contracting HIV. And obviously, HIV has been for years a scourge for all of society, but in particular, the gay community. And so it's a very good thing that tenofovir exists and can treat this scourge. And so that is something that we should all be very happy about. The problem with this class of drugs is that in 2001, when they brought the first tenofovir drug, Gilead brought the first tenofovir drug to market, which was the Viriad, they had already been developing alongside the TDF version of tenofovir that ended up in their drugs from 2001 through 2015. They developed another class of tenofovir prodrug called TAF. And both of these drugs were developed in the late 1990s before they launched the TDF version of tenofovir. This is a lot of letters being thrown around here, but the issue is this: both TDF and TAF are what they call prodrugs. And what a prodrug is a compound that is inert or relatively inert when ingested. But once in the body, it will release the active component. The active component in TDF and TAF drugs is tenofovir.
Okay.
The tenofovir, while very effective at treating HIV or limiting, HIV in the body or in helping to prevent contracting HIV, it also has side effects. And the side effects of tenofovir in the body is that it can damage the kidneys and it can cause bone density loss, bone mineral loss that ultimately can lead to bone density loss, fractures. It can lead to deterioration of the teeth. And so it has some fairly significant side effects. In some instances, the side effects can be as serious as kidney failure, acute kidney disease. It can be, people can end up on dialysis or even die, chronic kidney disease. So these are very significant side effects that can really impact people's life. The TDF version of the drug requires a substantially higher dose of tenofovir to actually do its job that we want it to do, which is prevent HIV or to eradicate HIV from the body. The TAF version requires a much smaller dose of the active ingredient tenofovir. As a result, you see with the TAF version much lower rates of the complications that we don't want, the kidney damage, the bone mineral loss, kidney failures, dialysis, etc. We see much lower rates of that with the TAF version of the drug than the TDF version of the drug. And so that what Gilead should have done is have brought the TAF version to market rather than the TDF version. But that's not what they did.
And do you think the reason being is cost, or why do you think that is the case?
Well, the reason that they brought the TDF version to market for so long, and they marketed TDF versions from 2001 to 2015, we believe that they did this so that they could hold the TAF version of the drug back, not get FDA approval, keep their monopoly through their patent and deals that they cut with generic manufacturers of these drugs, keep their TDF monopoly on this class of drugs for as long as they possibly could. And when that began to become unsustainable, they could launch the TAF version. So from 2001 to 2015, by only offering TDF rather than the safer alternative, they kept a monopoly. And then when in 2015, they were able to bring the TAF versions to market, which could potentially keep them as having a functional monopoly on this class of drugs into, as late as the 2030s. So it was a business decision. But it was a business decision that had terrible consequences for people who are at risk of or suffer from HIV.
So currently now on the market, the medication is TAF.
They are heavily marketing the TAF drugs now. And actually the TAF versions of the drugs, they, in order to get the switch, get people to switch from the TDF versions, or doctors in their prescribing, or consumers to switch, they actually market that the TAF versions are safer and every bit as effective.
Oh, wow.
True. But that doesn't do any good for the people who have developed very serious complications, prior to the TAF being available.
So the people who have started experiencing symptoms, why is it important for them to file or start looking for an attorney for representation?
Well, first, many of them are going to have suffered life-changing, perhaps even deadly conditions as a side effect of taking the tenofovir. Or the TDF version of tenofovir. So they may need compensation for medical treatment. They may be on dialysis. They may have lost wages due to the injuries. They may have lost earning capacity due to the injuries, or loved ones may have lost a son or a father or a brother to the side effects of this drug in an unnecessary manner. And so that's obviously one set of reasons to bring it. The other is, it's important to bring these sorts of cases because it's our only way of holding these companies to account for bad behavior. And what Gilead did in this case is, is expose people, in our view, expose people to unnecessary danger for the purpose of making more money. And that is not something we want to see from our pharmaceutical companies.
Right. So when somebody is seeking representation, along with bringing documentation from medical records and kind of how it's affected them in the workspace, what else do you recommend they bring in order to prepare, or questions they should be asking when they're meeting with an attorney?
Well, oftentimes we can get the medical records, but it sure does help to have the medical records available when we're initially evaluating the case. Also, proof of when and how much and exactly what drugs from the tenofovir class of drugs you were taking is also helpful. All of that is stuff that we can and do request once we've been hired or to investigate a case. But having it on the front end certainly helps us evaluate the case more quickly. And there are instances, this drug has been on the market since 2001 for people who've been on the drug for a long time. Establishing the taking of the drug years and years and years ago, if you happen to have your proof of prescriptions or your proof of actually purchasing the drug from years back, sometimes those records are not kept long enough. And if you happen to have them, that's helpful. We like to be able to get as much information as we can.
So somebody who did start taking the drugs back in 2001, would they have a statute of limitations if they wanted to try to file right now, or what would their limitations be?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
With the issue of statute of limitations, it's highly dependent on the facts of each case, and it's highly dependent on the law of the state where you reside or maybe took the drug. And so that can be a very complex analysis that we have to do on a case-by-case basis. But my advice on the statute of limitations is don't assume that you can't bring your case because of the statute of limitations, but also don't hesitate in seeking out legal advice once you know you may have a claim, because you don't want that statute of limitations to pass before you get around to talking to an attorney. Also, you want to give the attorney as much time as possible to investigate the case and get your case on file before that statute of limitations may pass. And sometimes, these are complicated cases. They may require significant medical records to be obtained and everything, and that can take some time. So folks who think, who are suffering from one of these side effects and who took the TDF, tenofovir class of drugs should immediately talk to an attorney that is qualified in this area and get some help. Yes, I agree. Thank you so much for being here today and telling us more about it. It's something that I don't feel a lot of us know are available, things that are accessible to us and things that we do have grounds to pursue. So I appreciate your time and thank you so much, Mr. Barlow. Thank you.